Hey, hello, good
Hey,
morning.
how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Looking
Yeah,
forward.
Hey, Anna.
Hey,
Hi.
I
So you're wearing the Red Hat cap. So great.
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and I'm
Fantastic.
also
I need one as well. Okay. So
uh, I'm wearing also the red hat T-shirt, but well, the small red hat is not that visible,
fantastic.
so
Very cool.
yeah.
Very cool. So Sebastian, just a quick logistic thing. So Bharat is having some trouble rejoining the broadcast. So he would be joining us in a few minutes. So what we'll do is we'll move on with Anna's talk. I think
Yeah.
she's a great subject to speak on. And then
Okay.
later, once Bharat is available, we can open up for questions. If Praveen and
Oh
others
yeah.
have and Diwakar have some great questions, we can definitely have it answered by the speaker directly.
Okay. Awesome.
Sounds good.
So let me introduce you to all Anna, and she's working on my team as a developer advocate, and she's great. And moreover, she's about to speak about an awesome project, Quarkus. It's my favorite project so far since 2 years now, um, as a developer. And our role is to speak about developer experience. And with Quarkus, it's so easy because you just have to code and well, Anna will show all of this to us.
Yeah.
Let me see. Your screen is shared.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So what I can certainly say is that if you love Java, you will definitely love Quarkus.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay. Hey
Oh my
Anna, the
God.
stage is yours, and see
All
you
right,
in.
Anna.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you very much. See you in a bit.
Yeah.
So, everyone, welcome to Productive Development with Quarkus, the supersonic subatomic Java. Today with Java 17, as this is the latest long-term release that we have available as Java developers. So why not give it a try with working with Quarkus and Java 17 goodies? So those being said, let me enter in presentation mode. So as Sebastian has already mentioned, I am a colleague with him. I'm working as a developer advocate at Red Hat, colleague with him and Karan as well. We're all a big team here at Red Hat. But my role is similar to Sebastian's. I am working on improving developer experience with the Red Hat technologies. So wherever you have feedback regarding your experience with Quarkus, and not only that, is welcome to be known. And of course, I'm here to help you sharing my own experiences and experiments from what I've tried with Quarkus and not only. I'm also Java champion and a certified architect, and I love to try things that are a little bit more complex in the space out there working with the cloud. So those being said, in the talk today, as we know, we have been switching our approaches in development from the monolith to the modern one. So if the vintage approach was creating one big application that we used to deploy on an application server, nowadays we are having the same functionalities given to our end users, but by doing this in mini applications that are orchestrated individually thanks to orchestration platform, thanks to containerization and orchestration platforms for those containers like Kubernetes or OpenShift. So supersonic, subatomic Java, probably you've heard about Quarkus. It's been here around for 2 years and is available for us to be 2 years and more, and is here to help us into delivering very, very good, robust applications, but being smaller in memory footprint and way faster when they start. And why to develop with Quarkus and Java? Because Java still has so much goodness, has improved not only in terms of features and the new keywords that are added in the latest revisions of Java, but it has also improved in the user experience. I mean, if you're thinking of Java 17, actually starting with Java 13, you can think that Java has brought so much goodness for us as developers because we now have much more help when we're working with null pointer exceptions. So we're not doing it like in the old times when looking at this check trace and just investigating a lot of time where that null pointer exception has come. We now have a way to debug and to see where the problem is coming from way easier. So think of only that, of how much goodness is there. So who is this Quarkus and what's all the fuss about it? So if you're looking at Quarkus and you're comparing it with a traditional enterprise Java application, it's 10 times smaller and 100 times faster when you're working with it. And you're going to see that in my soon coded live example. So seriously, it's like that. Why is like that? Well, because the tradition, when you're looking at the traditional versus the Quarkus ways, what happens is that the framework, what it does typically at the build time, you're most of the time packaging the application. At the runtime, if you're using a traditional framework, you're like realizing that things are either working as expected or not working as much as expected. But typically at runtime, that kind of action, it takes longer time. Although the build time was like smaller, the runtime stuff and checks and unpacking and everything is taking way longer. But with Quarkus, what happens is that at build time, all these actions are being incorporated there. The build is taking still a small amount of time, and you get your application like up and running in just matters of milliseconds. You're just clipping a bit and you have it running. So not only that, you can turbo speed with GraalVM. So using GraalVM, you can have Quarkus running natively. What this means is that I feel like in a traditional Java application, you would have done like Java -jar to start your application, like your packaged as jar application. In the native world, you don't need the JVM to start your application. So it's simple as that. It behaves like an executable, so you don't need the JVM anymore. What this means is that, you have smaller container images. Smaller container images means that, your containers will be started faster by Kubernetes because it would be less to download and to have your pods in the running phase. This is what we want to achieve, like to minimize all these time spent between getting the image and running the image. Isn't it great? And also you get like with the help of GraalVM, you get this way to minimize the dependencies. You will have, GraalVM also helps you like with dead code elimination, and you're still using the goodness of Java. That's the most important thing. So this is why we're saying that Quarkus is a Kubernetes native framework. And to prove that to you, I will live code in this session. Let me escape from this part and first of all, go to my favorite place to work with Quarkus, code.quarkus.io. And let me get some extensions from here. So I will need to build an application. That's a little bit more complex. So it will consume a REST endpoint from the board API. And it will, of course, do some transformations, as we probably do in our regular applications. We do some transformations for the way that we expose the data to our end users. And of course, we want to package this application for the native. And besides that, we are also wanting to deploy this to Kubernetes. So let's see how to do that. First of all, since I said that I am needing to work with and make an exposed REST service, I need to have REST easy on JSON-B added as an extension so that I can serialize and expose my REST services with JSON-B serialization. I said I need to consume an endpoint, REST endpoint. So I also need the REST client to do that. But when I work with REST endpoints, I would very much like to have those REST endpoints annotated and documented and because I interact way easier with them. So I'm using also the SmallRye Open API extension. Also, we would like to make this application fault tolerant. So let's add some SmallRye fault tolerance to it. And next, I need a way to package my application and to build my container image. So I will choose, in this case, Jib to package my app. And for the Kubernetes and the other subparts, I'm going to add them down the way. So just having these 5 extensions, I can download now this as zip and work on my local. Okay, so if you like another approach, that I also suggest is very good to have it in when working with Quarkus and when you're trying to migrate, is having the one based on our Quarkus archetype. In the Quarkus archetype way, you can also generate your endpoint, because typically you would get the greeting resource when you're generating your code from there, from code.quarkus.io. But with the archetype, you can also choose the name of the class name and the path of that one. So those being said, what I did here, I actually did the same. I have the same extensions, but I generated from the archetype. Do not worry, I will share how to generate from the archetype at the end of the session, because there's a nice article that I wrote to support this session so that you can reproduce everything and you can get access to the code as well. So the same thing, I get here the hobby resource, which is a REST endpoint. So Quarkus is already giving to me some things to work with. I also get some Docker files, so I get a good starting point. But when I did the generation, I am using Java 11. So let's do this small manual change here and say Java 17 and reload the context as well. And just that you switched for your local work for the moment to Java 17, right? So those being said, let's go here and code the consuming endpoint. So we want to consume an endpoint. Let me go back to the browser, the board API. And I'm going to use this part here to get my endpoint. So this is the board API endpoint, and I'm going to get some information in my code. To do that, I can code an interface, and I'm going to call it activity service. And I'm just going to put this here for the moment so that I don't forget the endpoint where I'm having this. To make it an as an endpoint for consumption of my REST endpoint, I'm just going to register it as a REST client and use here a path to my API and say import class. And of course, the path is API/activity because I may not have copy pasted everything, but it was like /activity here. Okay, so this is the path. I need also to add this at the level of my application app properties as well, because I need to instruct it. Hey, you should consume from this endpoint, and to have a way to get it from there. So mp-rest URL, and here's the board API. And of course, eliminate this part because we don't need it. So easy as that. And here's my activity service. Now let's code a few methods to consume. So let me just say activity service and do this. I'm okay, auto-generated them. But do not worry, we're gonna build the other parts down the way. So let me just import some things. It's because I have only just a few moments available for my presentation. So let me import the class. I don't like this media type that I'm getting here. Okay. And of course, let me import the query params as well. And yeah, I see here that I have now 3 classes that I have not defined yet. And here's where we're going to use first our goodie with our good parts with Java 17. So let's create the class basic hobby. And what we're going to do for this one, for the consumption, is we are consuming it as well, when in this part. So we want to use some Java 17 goodies when we're establishing a class hierarchy for our DTOs that we're going to use further. We can have this one saying, hey, this basic hobby is going to be a class that is going to allow inheritance. And I'm going to use the sealed keyword only to price hobby. So I'm going to have another one that's going to be called priced hobby. But let me go here to the priced hobby and actually create the classes because I think it's easier. Priced hobby and complete hobby. Okay. Now let's go to basic hobby. Okay, now it says here it's sealed class and permit inheritance only to priced hobby. Now I want to add some annotation. So I'm going to say JSON ignore properties, ignore unknown true. So if there are some unknown properties to basic hobby, please ignore them when serializing them. And let's just quickly code a little bit here and go to the browser. I just need this. I don't know things by heart, so I just need to code a little bit using these details. As this is a DTO, I don't really care that I'm going to expose publicly some information. So I'm going to say, so I'm not going to create like getters and setters because probably it's going to do the same thing. I'm going to say string type, public int participants, and well, of course, it's JSON B creator. Just going to create us a very helpful method, basic hobby, empty, and of course, return here, return new basic hobby. Okay. Now that we got this one here and we have our first class defined, let's go to priced hobby. So priced hobby, because probably at one endpoint we're going to like expose some basic information about the hobby, but we can expose some information also about the priced hobby as well. What are you saying to me? Annotations are not allowed here. Class or interface. Oh, sorry. It's too early, it seems to me. Okay. And I have forgotten something else here as well. What did I forget? Expected. Product class. Basic hobby, permits, priced hobby. What? And that you are not taking this into account for me. One sec. Project structure. Modules, 17. Okay. Annotations are not allowed here. Why aren't you allowing this to me? Public class interface. It's the same thing. Okay, let me go further and maybe I can solve this down the road. So let's go to the one that's called priced hobby. And let's make it also a sealed class. And well, I can say on this one that extends basic hobby. And it also permits inheritance to complete hobby, which is another class. And for this one, sorry, I forgot to paste some information for this one. I would say that I would need like, I don't know, the information about the price only. So I would say public double price, and that's it. And it's going to be enough for the moment. And now let's go to complete hobby. And this one is not going to be a sealed class anymore, as this one is the last one in our hierarchy. So I'm going to say non-sealed class complete hobby extends priced hobby. Okay, extends priced hobby, and I can say here public string link. Maybe I want to give it a link, and also public double accessibility. I hope I wrote it well. Okay. Why are you having this problem here? Public cluster interface expected. go here to the basic hobby one and to go to the ignore hobby. Wondering if this one took into account everything. Let me just go a clean. And go with the package. That's an interesting thing. So it's a good feature of the IDE. I'm wondering if I would like reload the project. It is going to fix it. Reload from disk. Okay, terminal. Okay, so let's go further and see how this is going. So this is the first part of like coding the REST easy endpoints, you know, and have it available. Now let's consume it also at the level of the hobby resource and have it defined there as well. So for the hobby resource, what I would like to do is actually define 2 endpoints of mine and use my injected endpoint. So I'm just gonna go here and have these 2 coded with the activity service I defined earlier. But not only that, I want to give a little bit more like complicate things a little bit and have my own hobby like logic and use something that is coming also from, I think, from Java 13 and use the switch case with yield. So let's like define any path for this one and say for this one type and code it here. Let's give it public response get hobby by type and code it here with a path param and give it like okay type string type. Okay, and import the class, and of course now return. I'm going to do this small hack here, switch by type, and let's do some switch. Now, what I can do, I can say that, for example, it can happen like if the type of the activity is recreational, this endpoint always, I would like it to return something to my end user. So please use yield to respond using status. This injected the right response. Yeah, it uses the right response. I was like really worried it's not using the right response. So yield response dot status and say response dot status dot okay. And now let's return dot entity and say service dot get activity by type. And now let's build. This can be one of our cases. Why is this not? Let me, don't like this, but we'll go further and use something else for the rest of the day. Now, next one is a case drawing. And let's just say yield. And for this one, I don't just going to copy paste this, but instead of responding with OK, I would say, hey, there's no content if there's drawing, because there's actually no content in the activity API for this one. And I'm going to use what I did earlier for basic hobby and use the empty response. What you can see here is that I'm not using the break case anymore. So this is one advantage that comes with a later versions of Java. It's like you don't need to use the break case anymore. So now let's yield and say like invoke service unavailable. And this is by type, because I want to like create my own method that's service unavailable. And just gonna go here. Okay. And just go here. Sorry about this. And respond with it with this part here, with logger, of course. And I need a logger, which are very popular nowadays. I think we've all been hearing about the logging issues. And now things are getting slightly better. Let me just look at this one. Why aren't you? Reload from disk. Because the MVN clean package was okay. It's just the IDE that has a problem, it seems. Let me just go here and say Java 17 MVN Quarkus dev. It's going to be interesting. Compilation failure expected. Of course, there's something that I forgot. At line hobby resource, line 45. What did I forget? Oh, yes, I forget something about the switch because I'm returning something. So let's use this one and see if everything's okay. Okay, seems that my app is doing fine. An error report. Okay, I'm using Java 17. Destination must be aligned. Oh, I have a small GraalVM issue, it seems. So let me go to a project that actually compiles. I have another one here. Okay, and get my sample app from another place, as I don't like all this redness. So if you don't mind, I get it here. And again, same thing with the hobby. I clear Java 17, MVN Quarkus dev. Okay, this one seems to be fine. Interesting. Well, it's pretty much the same thing as we had earlier, but let's not just go to the browser and test our things now that we have things running. So let's go to localhost 8080 and go here and use the dev UI to check our endpoints. And in the dev UI, I can go to the small right open API. And let's invoke our actions by type, because it was the most interesting thing that we coded. And it was like for recreational, let's check if we get a response. Because for recreational, we should get something. If we get drawing, we shouldn't get anything. So we should get no content. Yeah, we get the 204 and with no content. And we get just content type. And if we're like saying music, we should be getting a 503, like service unavailable. So we're getting that the service is not available as we have coded it before. So those being said, let's go and make our application a little bit resilient. If, for example, something is wrong with our endpoint, with our board API endpoint, and let's make it here. So if I would add like S or an E, like board API, board API, this one doesn't exist. So let's go here and make sure that this one doesn't exist. Now, if we're not going to protect our services against any type of problems, what is going to happen is that this get activity by type is not going to be working properly. So if I would go again here and I would execute, not music, I would say recreational, because that one was working earlier. What I'm going to see is a 500 and user internal error, some very bad exception, which is not really great for end user experience. And we would need to make it a little bit resilient. So let's make this bigger and make our application resilient. What we can do, thanks to the fault tolerance that we have added earlier in the extension part, we can add the circuit breaker pattern and a circuit in via the circuit breaker annotation, and use failure ratio to specify, hey, when the failures are 75%, please try to do not allow calling this faulty API, and try to see if this API is better after 4 seconds. Then if you're invoking a faulty endpoint, you would like to trace a little bit if your faulty endpoint is working. If it's not working, you don't want to wait for a long time for things to return something faulty. So you can shorten that by using a timeout. So when the timeout is reaching 250 milliseconds, a timeout exception will be thrown thanks to this annotation. And, well, you can still try to see if things are not, getting better by using the @retry annotation and having max retries 4 times. And between each retry have 1 second. But if things are not going to be working for 3 out of these 4 retries in a timeout of 250 milliseconds, the circuit breaker is going to be triggered at this 75% ratio. And next, what you can do is offer it to your end users a way to having a fallback. And you can have a fallback with default basic hobby. And this one, with the default basic hobby, what you can do is offer them something in between. Now, typically, how would you have coded this default basic hobby class before Java 17? You would have had an inner class that would have been static and would have done something for you. Now, thanks to Java 17, you can define this as a record. And by implementing fallback handler, you can offer something to your end user until your consumed endpoint is recovering. And this is pretty great in not having to define any more of those public static classes and all these things. So try to use what the goodness of Java 17 is bringing to you, even in your custom implementations. Next thing, you see here that, well, I have some problems when invoking things, right? And one of the goodness things that can help us when we are consuming these faulty endpoints, even with Java 17, is to use continuous testing of Quarkus. So you see here that I'm saying tests pause and press R to resume testing. Now, if I'm going to press R, the tests that I have created for my endpoints are going to be ran. And whenever you're making a change to your class, your tests are going to be ran all the time and show to you something in the background. So for example, earlier, when you saw that my endpoints were failing, my tests would have failed as well. So whenever you're making a change, this will be taken into account and your tests will be run. So this is another great thing about coming with Quarkus, and is working awesomely with Java 17 as well. Next thing that we were trying to cover is in the session is like, why not use this kind of endpoint also with, I don't know, when you're integrating and you want to store something into a database. So also thanks to Quarkus, like version 2, you can have defined your data source and have something automatically configured for you with 0 data source configuration. And to do that, I need a small thing to be added to my project. So let's say that I would need to persist data in my PostgreSQL, and I just need to add the copy and Maven command and add it here. Cancel. Java 17. Add this extension. And I can also add, because I don't like to code all my SQL queries myself, I'm going to use the Hibernate RM with Panache extension. I'm going to add it as well here. And you can see that all the time the context is being reloaded and everything is being done for me when I'm working in dev mode. And since I've added new database like connection and configuration to my project, now I just need to like specify the kind of database. So I'm going to say PostgreSQL. And thanks to this annotation, thanks to this part here, when I'm going to, let's reload this one and start my Docker, contain my Docker locally. So I need to stop this faulty one. So this is going to start. And it's going to run it again. So when my Docker is starting, what is going to happen is that Quarkus is going to automatically detect the data source that I have like needing here in my local development, like PostgreSQL. But I didn't do any configuration to my PostgreSQL connection. However, since I am using the goodness of like having the data source there and Quarkus too, Quarkus is going to try to search and start for me also a database, a PostgreSQL database configuration. So let me add it here. It should have been like just PostgreSQL. Hope that I have taken this into account. Let me, 1 second. Always, sometimes I can be things can be too fast and not seen. So yeah, what happens is now what you see here that container has been built. So dev services for the default data source PostgreSQL started, and the database was initiated for me without me doing any changes and specifying any URLs here. So that's another goodness that comes with using Quarkus. It's like you don't need to specify your own database on your local and do a local setup to have something to spin up in the background. Now, let's move to like containerizing this application. And I think we can oh, I'm already over. Yeah. Okay. So
I'm really sorry, Anna, but yeah.
Yes,
Your
it's
time
okay.
is over, and we if there's this last thing that you want to wrap up, because we need to move to the next session. I'm really sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, maybe Anna, if you want to just wrap up your talk. Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
Sure. Thank you very much, guys. So next thing that I wanted to show to you is that you can build your own container image using Jib, and you have all the configurations here. And I have swapped, the default configuration that was for Java 11 by using the base native image that is using Java 17. And you can also try all this nice code that I've shown to you today. And there's a very nice article written by me on developers.redhat.com, only by scanning the QR code shown here. So that is going to take you to the article and to all the code that I showed to you today. So everything, you can find it there. And I'm going to answer the questions in the chat because I've seen some questions there. So do not worry, I'm staying here for a while. So please do not worry. Ask your questions and I'll answer all of them in the chat. It's my pleasure to answer to your questions. Thank you very much for listening to me. And of course, last but not least, 2 awesome books written by our colleagues, Alex Soto and Jason Porter, and of course, Natale and Marcus Aiselli for Modernizing Enterprise Java, both using Quarkus. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Anna.